That was terrific. Shelley Gartner, please. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you. Goes with pride. As our enemies have found, we can reason like men, so now let us show them that we can fight like men also. Thomas Jefferson. Alan Dlugash is a CPA and partner at Marks Paneth & Schron LLP, concentrating on tax planning, return preparation, and financial analysis for individuals and their business entities. In addition to being a regular speaker at many professional conferences, Mr. Dlugash has appeared on a variety of TV news outlets such as Fox Business and is often quoted in publications such as the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, and Bloomberg. Not sure about the last one, Alan, but we'll say it. He writes on tax issues and the politics of taxes as an ardent libertarian, free market, and small government advocate. He is here today to enlighten us on what is really going on with the tax and economic policies on the federal and New York State levels and how they will affect us. Please, big welcome, please, for Alan Dlugash.
It is really a pleasure to be here today. Speaking is not the principal thing that I do. It is not my day job. But my day job leads to such incredible frustration and anger that, unfortunately, I'm here today to share that frustration and anger with you in the hope that we can get enough excitement caused by this frustration and anger to make some real changes next Tuesday. We all have this frustration and anger, but a lot of us aren't totally sure exactly why. Maybe we all have a little snippet here and there of things we know are not being done right in Albany and Washington. But I'm here to give you some specifics, some flesh on those bones, to fuel the anger and to make it absolutely clear, without any hint of being wrong, that the people, the present incumbents, are out there for their own personal self-interests and have left the interests of their constituencies out in the dark. So let me start. The first thing that happened when we started into a recession is that all of us as individuals pulled in our belts. We started being very careful about our spending. We started being very careful about our jobs. We started being very careful about everything we needed to do financially. Businesses as well. All of us who own businesses, all of us who work for businesses, we all know that tightening of the belt had to be done. We had to be very frugal and responsible to deal with this recession. But governments, they were incredibly irresponsible. They changed nothing. They planned for nothing. And they got themselves into such trouble that the state is now, without any fear of contradiction, structurally bankrupt as we sit here today. The only thing that has temporarily bailed them out is the fact that the federal government that can write a check without having to worry about having money in the bank to cash it, the federal government has bailed them out. In fact, in so many cases that some of our states, New York included, in order to balance their budget, is assuming that a lot of these payments are going to continue. Absolutely outrageous. We just went through a stimulus package. The stimulus package was indicated that it was 1/3 tax cuts, 2/3 spending. I am here to tell you that anybody who has honestly looked at it knows for sure there were no tax cuts in that stimulus package whatsoever. In fact, what the government did in a way that if the SEC was involved, these people would actually be in jail. But what has happened is the powers that be decided that what they could do is spend money, but instead of them writing the checks out of Washington, they would have the Internal Revenue Service write the checks. So they wanted to give $400 to millions of people. So what they did is they said, IRS, you write the checks for $400 to all of these people, and we're going to call it a tax cut because it's going to be coming from the IRS. That's fraud. Everybody knows it, but they go on, and the current administration still calls them tax cuts. We have a tax rate now that has been very important to stimulate the economy since they were started. The Bush tax cuts in the early 2000s, 2001 and 2003. The economies have been doing very well, and now that we have a recession, principally caused, almost exclusively caused by Washington irresponsibility to the mortgage markets, now they want to kill the very tax regimen that has been responsible for the growth since early in the decade. But what do they want to put in its place? Let me quote Senator Schumer. Everyone is mindful of the deficit problem, and everyone is mindful of the slack economy. The question is how you thread the needle, and so I think the program will be narrow and focused. Let me interpret. What the senator was saying, narrow and focused, means that I'm going to give little bits of money to my friends, and I'm going to screw the economy by taking away the tax cuts that's been responsible for its growth. The administration has been talking about the new jobs that the stimulus has created. The stimulus has not created jobs, it has cost millions of jobs. Any prior recession by this stage would have rebounded substantially. In fact, the only time it didn't was during the period of FDR. And so what are we doing now? Exactly the same thing that FDR did to make sure that we didn't grow out of that recession. What is that? Increased taxes and increased government spending. How can we be so stupid? How could our administration be so stupid as to, with 10 recessions in between the New Deal and now, we go back to the one time that it didn't work and try to reproduce what they did then? In terms of personalities, let's be clear. It's small business that is responsible for most of the jobs in this country, and that's not controversial. In fact, the administration has said that very thing, has said it over and over again. Who is the new chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, newly announced? Austin Goolsbee, a name that most of you probably don't know. But in his first national appearance, which happened to be on Fox News Sunday, he said the following, and let me preface it by saying, he was asked, well, why wouldn't you be for extending the Bush tax cuts when in fact the small businesses that are responsible for all the job growth pay taxes at those individual rates? By letting those rates go up, aren't you going to be stifling those very people who are going to be providing those new jobs? To which he said, if a lobbyist sets up shop or a lawyer in which they're receiving income through what is something like a tax loophole so that it's not counting as corporate income, that is what this is counting as small business. Let me interpret. The chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors has just said that the small business people in this country that pay taxes at individual rates, and they pay taxes at individual rates solely to avoid double taxation in a regiment that the federal government has foisted upon them, he's calling them a bunch of loophole users. He has attacked the very people that they acknowledge are the ones that are responsible for job growth. The truth is, Austin Goolsbee should have never lasted that Sunday morning. The fact that he was not fired on the spot could only be attributed to the fact that he was trying to believe that he could give a soundbite that would go right over the heads of people. One of the biggest problems that I have at this point is I can't figure out whether the administration is just absolutely clueless or whether they really do understand what they're doing but think that we are absolutely clueless.